build of the existing one? Well, they did the same thing at Pier 1, on the fourth floor across from,
Huh? You guys go first if you're
oh, really? Yeah.
might be pretty longer than you guys.
Jimmy. Jim. That's okay. That's okay. You want us to go first? That's fine.
Good evening and welcome to the November 6th meeting of the Milford Planning and Zoning Board. I would ask we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call from the left, please.
I'm Brian Collegian.
Nancy Austin.
Scott Marlowe. Jim Cater.
Peggy Kearney.
And I'm Jim Quish. We have with us Meg and, no, that's not David. No, that's Joseph. We are going to switch up the order tonight, and we will hear 771 East Broadway, Zone R5, petition of S. William Hamella for a coastal area site plan review to construct a single-family dwelling on map 22, block 474, parcel 30, of which Constance, Kalikoski is the owner. Pardon my pronunciation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just for the record, my name is Thomas Lynch. I'm an attorney with the law firm Lynch, Trimbicki, and Boynton. My office is located at 63 Cherry Street here in Milford, and I'm here tonight with my client, Tara Kolakowski. See, you got me going. Tara Kolakowski, who is the owner of the property located at 771 East Broadway here in Milford. And we're before you with a application for site plan approval for coastal area management. It's not necessitating a special permit with this, so it's not a public hearing. It's just the site plan application and presentation to you. And the application is designed to allow the demolition of the existing two-story structure that's located at the property and construction of a new residence. So just by way of background, the existing property is some 1,300 square feet. It was constructed in 1915. As Jim mentioned at the outset, the property is located in the R5 zone. And last year, Tara came before the Zoning Board of Appeals, made an application for 4 variances to allow construction of a somewhat larger residence than this. The applications were granted by the Zoning Board of Appeals, but the next-door neighbor, located at 769 East Broadway, brought a court appeal in Superior Court, and Tara and her mother made the decision that instead of spending some 18 months or 2 years in court, and upon also recognizing the hurdle that's faced on any court appeal of the granting of a variance and finding of hardship, she decided to go back to the drawing board with the architect and her engineer, Bill Hill-Miller, is also with me tonight, and come up with a new plan, and that's the plan that's presented to you tonight. The existing structure is non-conforming in that it encroaches upon the side yard setbacks and the projection setbacks in the R5 zone, but under our zoning regulations, you can rebuild a new structure as long as you adhere to the footprint and the setbacks of the existing structure. So that's what we've done here. The plan before you is the plan for a 1,500 square foot three-family house that meets all zoning requirements except for the fact that the structure itself is non-conforming as to the setbacks. The plans as submitted show there's a new deck. The existing deck that was on the house was destroyed from Superstorm Sandy back in 2012, and the new deck that's been designed is somewhat smaller than the prior deck. It also has, as David noted in his staff memo to you, a stairway that goes out the back of the deck to the rear of the property heading towards Long Island Sound. There's sufficient rear yard setback for that rear stairway, so that portion of the project is zoning compliant as well. The property is located in flood zone AE. The first floor elevation that's required in that zone is 13 feet. The plans, again, as submitted to you, show the first floor elevation to be 18 feet, so we're well above the limits as, or the requirements for that particular zone. The other thing I wanted to highlight to you is that the height of the building is 32 feet from the average grade to the midpoint, so that is compliant with the zoning regulations as well. So again, the plans show the proposed dwelling on the lot. The elevations speak for themselves. It's going to be a house with 2 floors of living space. The third floor is not going to be developed at this time or improved at this time. So that's where we're showing you some 1,250 square feet of living space. The house is built on pilings in conformity with the flood elevation regulations. There's going to be a tandem 2-car garage underneath the house. And then the floor plans, as you've seen, have an open floor plan, living space on the first floor with the kitchen, and then 3 bedrooms and 2 baths on the second floor. So that's the sum and substance of this. Happy to answer any questions if you have them, but it's a pretty straightforward application. This actually was set to come before you back in August, I believe, but upon his review, the city engineer had some comments that he made. The plans were amended one time, and then Tara had a change in the plan for this rear stairway coming off the deck going to the back of the property, so the plans were amended again. I believe it may have been on one of your agendas in September, but we're finally here, so any questions, we can entertain them for you.
Joe, would you comment?
Attorney Lynch seemed to sum it up pretty well. Our summary indicates that, it's been distributed to the various departments, and there appear to be no adverse environmental impacts to coastal resources with the reconstruction taking place within the existing footprint.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'd hear a motion.
Sure. 771 East Broadway, I move to approve as presented the petition of S. William Hamilla for a coastal area site plan review to construct a single-family dwelling on map 22, block 474, parcel 30, of which Constance Kolakowski is the owner. And I don't believe there's any conditions.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Nancy? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Great. Thanks so much, and thanks for taking us out of order. Good luck with our new McDonald's on Bridgeport Avenue.
next order of business is 439 Bridgeport Avenue, Zone CDD3, petition of Bowler Engineering for a site plan review to construct a new restaurant building on map 24, block 207, parcel 5, of which the McDonald Real Estate Company is the owner. If you would please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Eric DeBrule with Bowler Engineering, here on behalf of the applicant tonight. Before you is an application for site plan review and coastal management site plan review. McDonald's is essentially looking just to completely raise and rebuild their existing McDonald's. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the McDonald's, but I brought along an aerial, Bridgeport Ave, of course, running across with the McDonald's in the center. Just a few things I want to point out on the existing site before we get into what we're proposing. We have about a 7,000 square foot existing McDonald's with drive-through, pretty standard one-way circulation on site. You have 3 driveways today, which we're looking to make an improvement on. And just generally how the site's set up is a little bit antiquated today. Very difficult to understand how the circulation is. So we're looking to make those types of improvements. So what McDonald's proposes, again, completely brand new site, completely renovated. We're reducing the size of the building slightly. It's about a 5,500 square foot restaurant. You'll still have the drive-through, of course. We're consolidating the 3 driveways down to 2. So you'll have a driveway dedicated as an entrance and a full access on the far corner. So certainly improving circulation on site. Again, very typical one-way circulation. The drive-through, they're going from a single lane, what they call a single lane drive-through, to what they like to do is their side-by-side drive-through. They're able to take in orders much more efficiently and process those, so you have a lot less queuing on the site, which will also be a benefit. In terms of stormwater management, we're making improvements for quality and reducing runoff, mainly by adding some stormwater quality units, infiltration system, but we're also reducing pavement on site by over 10,000 square feet. So most of that green space is going to come along the frontage and internal landscaping towards the rear of the building. We're proposing about 160 new plantings on site, new lot lighting, LED lot lighting. So again, I can get into all the details on the utilities and anything you want to talk about, but essentially it would be a brand new site, fully zoning compliant. I think we're reducing parking from 110 down to the minimum of 77. It's still going to be well parked out for McDonald's operationally. Architecturally, McDonald's is going away from the bright red colors on the roof and those white illuminated roof beams, going with something a little bit more modern. You've got aluminum cladding, fiber cement board, and brick as the main base part of the building. Obviously, a little bit more muted colors on the building, and architecture's subjective, but certainly more modern and a little bit, I think, nicer than what's out there today. Fully compliant wall sign package as well. So as far as the coastal management zone, we do have a flood zone AE on site. We are not developing within that area. It's at the far corner of the site. Just point it out briefly for you, but essentially it's in the far corner. We don't propose any development there, any changing any grades. It's just going to be left as is today. I just figured I'd point that out as part of the coastal management application. I'll leave it at that. Thank you for your time.
Joe, would you comment?
Yeah, he summarized it very well. Yeah, we're demolishing the existing building and putting in a new building that's approximately 1,400 square feet smaller. It's still providing the drive-up window. It's been reviewed, as you indicated, through the city engineer for the stormwater, for current stormwater standards. And the new site plan is more conforming with regards, with the regulations in regards to the landscaping and the setback. And there seems to be no adverse impact on the coastal resources.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Then I would hear a motion.
I move to approve as presented the petition of Bowler Engineering for a site plan review to construct a new restaurant building on map 24, block 207, parcel 5, of which McDonald's Real Estate Company is the owner.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Peg. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any liaison reports because we don't have any liaisons. And subcommittee report, we didn't have a POCD meeting today, and I think that what we need to do is we need to make sure that the agenda is sent out with a reminder the day of the meeting. I don't even know if it was properly noticed, so that. So Jim is saying that it's the second meeting we had for POCD. The first meeting of the month, what did we, I don't actually recall what we decided.
Right now, what we have is the Regulation Subcommittee is the first meeting of the month, and then the Plan of Conservation and Development Subcommittee is in the second meeting of the month.
Okay.
So this presumably should have been the
So
second.
that was my mistake and confusion, I guess, with regard to tonight. But we're going to hopefully clarify that in a moment. We have motion to approve the minutes of 10:15. Moved. I abstain. I was not here. But that should be a problem, right, with the quorum or anything? Okay, the approval of the minutes. Okay, so Chair's report, I will give it over to Joe to talk about. We have some options with regard to the schedule. And I'm going to let Joe explain each option to us. If you would, please.
Thank you. These have been distributed, right, Meg?
Yes.
Okay. So in front of you, we've passed out two, essentially, tonight you're looking to vote on your upcoming schedule for a calendar for 2020. And that's, we've got two schemes in front of you. And the distinction between the two is the large change is that the one represents one meeting per month for the for the Planning and Zoning Board as the full board, and that would be on the, just like you have now, the first Tuesday of the month. And then the second schedule in front of you is much akin to what you're doing right now, and that's having two board meetings per month, one on the first Tuesday of the month and next on the third Tuesday of the month. The discussion has been that with oftentimes we have smaller agendas, in which case what has been happening is oftentimes the board is called together to meet for, one, if not two small items on the agenda, and they wind up being the most half-hour meetings. And the other concern is that with these subcommittees meeting, in particular with the Plan of Conservation and Development, I think we're not allocating enough time, and as we move closer towards 2022, we will want more time for these subcommittees to meet. So I think the thought is that we allocate, as I said, the first Tuesday of the month towards just the planning and zoning, and then have the opportunity to meet with the two subcommittees on the third Tuesday of the month. And the condition being that if the agenda gets heavy on the for the first meeting of the month, you have the opportunity to call the special meeting on the second meeting of the second meeting on the third Tuesday of the month. And that would typically then happen again at 7:30 and essentially consolidate the subcommittee meetings on that evening. And there's been some discussion, as I pointed out to Jim. My concern is that, and as an example, Milford just received a accreditation for best practices through the Connecticut Association of Community Development and Land Use. And one of the criteria and one of the reasons why we were awarded that accreditation was because this board does meet twice a month and obviously affords businesses that are looking to get their site plans reviews a more ready opportunity to come in front of this board. So I'd like this board to at least consider that when, with that reduction, in my opinion, it would be sending the wrong message to businesses moving into or looking to develop in Milford. But having said that, as I discussed before, and we've discussed with Jim, the idea of having the single meeting would allocate more time for the subcommittees to meet. So again, it's the board's decision as to which schedule, or frankly, either one of these schedules, and then make whatever amendments you believe are appropriate. But that's
Thank you. And, we have been talking about this, and I made the recommendation that we go to one meeting. I think that, for us to all to come out and to have staff come out and have, today was 2 items, but it was still 15 minutes. And it seems to me that it seems to be what we've been experiencing. And I'm in no way trying to truncate any applicant. And I would, if we were to go with the one meeting for a regular meeting on the first Tuesday, and the third Tuesday be set aside for the Plan of Conservation and Development and the Regulation Subcommittee, I would be happy with some kind of a metric that says, well, if there's too much stuff on the first meeting that between the chair and Joe and David, that we say, yeah, well, we'll have a shorter subcommittee night this particular time, and we will have a meeting. Also, if I would even be okay with if, in fact, a particular applicant, felt that it was really essential for them to get on to that second of the 2 meetings in a month, that we could be flexible and say, sure, especially if there's, 8, maybe not quite to the threshold of pushing for a second regular meeting, but, an avenue to be accommodating. It just seems to have an automatic second meeting without really much going on, like what's in queue for this next meeting. There's like one item.
for the upcoming meeting.
Yeah,
Right now, but the agenda really hasn't been fully developed yet.
I know, but I mean, but you do know what's in pipeline and what's likely to be there. Is it 1? Is it 2?
We can't say right now. I mean, only because information is still coming in, applications are still being developed.
Yeah. Okay,
So,
well, I'm asking for likely.
Yeah.
Not definitive, but just to the point that there's having this discussion with you and David on this, there's only a couple things that are likely to come up. And so that's, again, I'm an advocate for changing into a position where we have, and I think it's important for the Plan and Conservation Development Subcommittee to have more time. And as time goes on, we will have, audience, and we will have stakeholders here, and to make that, to give that an opportunity to be a more robust adventure, rather than, at one point, we'd have to make it another day. If we just try to do it for an hour before a regularly scheduled meeting, we're not going to get through everything we want to get through, and especially when there's other stakeholders and possibly the general public to be able to weigh in. So I'm personally in favor of changing it up. So, any other thoughts? Anybody? Welcome to share, yeah.
Just a question. If you do switch to, one regular meeting and then one meeting for the subcommittees, will you be looking for more involvement from other members on the board for the subcommittee? Because people on the subcommittee, the regulations and the POCD are pretty much the same. So are you going to be looking for other people to be involved?
Actually, everybody's welcome.
Well, no, I know
Yeah.
that.
So, and we will, and we do have some new board members coming in January. So we will, hope that they will want to participate.
Yeah, I was looking at saying, everyone's used to meetings once a month, you would have better, more interaction with one board, which,
Yeah, and they even, if in fact they did not want to commit to being a regular member, they would be welcome. It's a public meeting, and they would be welcome to come. And if there was a particular, topic scheduled for that meeting that they were interested in, they would be welcome, as well as the general public. And
just one other question. I mean, if you do decide to do this, I know I won't be involved, but if you do decide to do this, can you change? Like you say, hey, this really isn't working out. Is it easy to just go back, or is that a big process?
I think once the schedule is published or accepted or voted on, then any new, those additional meetings, if we chose to have them, would have to be through a special meeting. And again, they'd just be posted as special meetings. If I could point out, Jim, what has happened often, I'm going to say a couple of times in the past year, we've had agendas that we're developing where we had one item on the agenda, and we'd ask the applicant, would you mind being put off to the following meeting? And we have called meetings just because the agenda has been light. And we were, again, sensitive to calling the board together for a one-item agenda. And so again, that if this board wanted to formalize that type of procedure specifically, if the agenda, a week before the meeting is a one-item agenda, reschedule it, push it off. But
Yeah,
that would keep you with the 2 meetings per month on your schedule, obviously.
yeah, that does address one of the concerns, but it doesn't address opening up more space for the Plan of Conservation and Development. So, again, I appreciate your perspective, and I think that if we do it well, we can let the potential applicants know that we are open to being accommodating. But in general, and to be honest, we've had dozens of times where the file isn't actually fully complete, and we're getting stuff last minute. If they have more time to get it prepared properly, that we won't have that. And that's something that I don't think it's fair to the board. They spend their time looking at things and then and we've talked about this, when you get all of a sudden a whole bunch of information from one of the applicants, and now, we actually took a recess to go to read it one time a few years ago. And that's, if it's one meeting a month, they'll, if somebody doesn't get heard because their file isn't complete and they have to wait a whole month, maybe they'll be more attentive to creating the proper file for us. So anyway, I'm in favor of it, and Nancy?
No, I understand going to one meeting a month. I totally, I'm not against that. But I'm also concerned that there's going to be all of a sudden a backlog, and then you're calling a meeting like, hey, it's Monday, tomorrow you have a meeting. And it's a scheduling thing. But I understand, I'm not against it. I'm just saying that is a concern. You know, I'm not saying myself, but I do travel a lot, and I try to plan around the 2 meetings a month, and I don't want to be all of a sudden, I can't make it because all of a sudden it was like told to me, you know, a couple days before happening.
We would have to have a policy in place that at the first, you know, when the agenda is set for the first meeting, at that point, if it's too full, then we would set for the second meeting.
Yeah.
You know, so you'd know
Again,
2 weeks in advance.
you know, I'm very flexible, and I can appreciate both sides, and you know, but we all did run under the presumption you had 2 meetings a month. I know we had to set this schedule going forward, but I'm game, you know, to try whatever. But the subcommittees are going to be important because we need time for them as well. So it's kind of like we're doing this like juggling thing. What do we do? I don't think there's an easy answer to this one.
Right.
Just my thought.
Thank you. Scott?
Well, other question, and again, not for me so much, but I guess the question would be is for the other board members is if you go to 1 meeting a month, is everybody on board with those meetings are going to be much longer? Would you rather have a meeting that ends at 9:30 or so, or go to 11 o'clock meetings? And that's up to you guys, but that is a reality. And I'm just wondering, with the 2 meetings, if you kept the 2 meetings, is it out of the question to have a separate meeting on a different day for the subcommittees?
Yeah, that's a thought. Peg?
Well, I was just thinking we have so many new board members coming in. I know we can't wait until January. It has to be published before that, huh? I said we have a lot of new board members coming in January, and they won't really have a say in it if we vote on it before then. But at the same time, I guess we can't wait.
That's a good thought. I brought that up to David, and he said that we had to have the schedule into the city clerk before the end of the year. Is that your understanding as well, Joe?
I guess so. I'd have to defer to Dave, but yes, I believe that is correct. Meg?
I think that's required at 30 days before the first of the year by statute. I believe that's a requirement.
Thank you.
Jim, do you have?
I
Peg?
don't have a thought one way or the other. Either or is okay with me. I'm just worried about a lot. I mean, we have 1, 2, 4 or 5 new people coming in, and I kind of like them to have a say in it, but I don't know how to do that.
I guess we can't, though. We have to notice we have to provide the city clerk with the new schedule. I think I would love to have done that. And I don't know, I guess we can look at it and see if the rest of the board wants to switch what we do today, and see how big of an ordeal that is to actually change the schedule. I don't know. I mean, we're being told it's impossible, but there's probably a way.
If I may, I mean, I think to add those additional meetings is just a question of within the allotted time, you know, with enough advance notice to make sure you put in a special notice to the city clerk. As I said, I think it's easy enough to insert it back into your schedule, but it would have to be done on a day-by-day basis. As I said, well, never mind.
Scott?
Question, and is the 2 meetings a month a city charter thing, where it's in the charter that the planning and zoning meets twice a month, and would would the subcommittee take the place of that second meeting? Or do you have to change something?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, we could actually not change and have 2 meetings a month, but internally just schedule all the business of the board on the first meeting, and the second meeting publish the agenda, which is the 2 subcommittees. Does that sound doable, or a safe way out? But I don't think it's in the charter, but I think that you brought up an interesting sort of perspective on it, which would kind of accommodate everybody. So, for example, one second meeting could be allow, a particular portion of the work, and then still have maybe a longer POCD meeting, and then maybe the public meeting starts at 8:30.
Do we have to let the city clerk know, or do we have to publish subcommittee meetings?
Yes, you had, yes,
Yeah, with the agenda.
correct. To your point, Jim, at some point, do you even need to draw the distinction between a regular planning and zoning meeting the first Tuesday of the month and a group of planning and zoning members getting together on the third Tuesday of the month, and whether your agenda is to discuss the plan of conservation and development versus a public hearing?
We would still need a quorum.
I think that's the consideration, is the subcommittees have a smaller quorum.
Gotcha. Well, it was pretty good thought. Any other questions or comments or thoughts?
Can I just say something?
Jim?
What have they done in the past? Have they always done 2 a month, or have they tried 1 a month? How's it turned out in the past? What's been the norm like 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
I couldn't say how long this board has been meeting twice a month. As I said, I do know that as the agendas look like they're going to be a 1-item agenda, that we have gone ahead and just pushed that 1 item off to the following meeting and canceled the meeting. But as far as I know, it's been the 2 meetings per month have been the regular schedule.
And, yep.
Just to that point, I've been around about almost 8 years. There have always been 2 meetings as long as I've been here. There used to be a distinction. I believe they used to consolidate as many of the public hearings into the first Tuesday and then have other hearings the second. But I think they dropped that distinction. I'm not sure when, maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think you're right. The aldermen meet once a month. Zoning Board of Appeals meets once a month, and Board of Ed has 2 meetings a month, and they're somewhat different, but
Do we have to make a vote tonight? I mean, it seems like everything you guys saying makes sense, both sides. I can understand either way going. I don't know if do we have to make a decision tonight? It sounds like some of the ideas you brought up about kind of setting the agenda for the second meeting might be a good way to handle it. And if you're doing the subcommittees at night, you're still getting the full nights. I'm not quite sure if we come up with something creative like that works for everybody.
the thing about that Joe just brought up is the need for 6 members for it to be a quorum. So we couldn't conduct business unless there were 6 present members on each of the subcommittees. In a subcommittee, you just need a majority of the members, or half the members actually, for a quorum on the subcommittee.
How many do we have in each of the subcommittees? Do we have enough?
We don't know because we have so many new members. We don't know what they're going to. But to your point, if the requirement is to notice city clerk 30 days prior to the end of the year, we could continue the discussion at our next meeting. And then we'd have to have one, even if there's only one item on it besides this.
Yeah, at the next meeting, I mean, what is on the agenda right now for the next meeting is that public hearing regarding the digital billboards, the electronic billboards. So
Okay.
I doubt
so
that.
there could be some people that are interested in that.
Yes. So even if it is a one-item agenda, I think it's still.
So we'd still have the meeting.
I
Okay,
think
gotcha.
so.
That's good. I mean, I'm happy to make a motion now and vote on it, but if you think that it's probably, I mean, maybe we'll have more people at the next meeting and give us all time to think it through and, maybe just think up some, questions or like your point, what if they're all going to go till late or, or the scheduling. Yeah, so we'll try to refine it a little bit and I think, Peg, your idea is good. Let's see if we can get the, full board here and give everybody a chance to consider it. So I guess what would be good is if in the minutes we could, try to get those out or some kind of a narrative that talks about the pros and cons of each proposal and maybe get the minutes out, or at least that portion of the minutes out to the whole boards so that they could, have a little time to think about it.
Just a suggestion, this is being recorded for MGAT, and the discussion, I think, is brief enough that there are a lot of really good points being raised, and maybe an email could encourage from you, Jim, or Joe.
Yeah, so maybe.
Encourage people to at least review this portion of the meeting.
Yeah, maybe a quick narrative describing each of the two calendar choices with a link to the MGAT and it might do, it's all good to look at it again, to hear other people's points and think about them. Great. Okay, so that's good enough decision made? All right, good. Thank you all. And that, as they say, is that. We're adjourned. So